And I wanted to spend today really thinking about the culture and some of the societal influences that impact on our food intake and our sleep. And there is an absolute load of stuff out there on both of these topics. And, you know, there was a temptation perhaps to think about going through a good food plate and how many pieces of fruit and veg we should be all eating. But I thought that this information's fairly you know, quite easy for people to get, and there are so many television programs and podcasts going through that I thought an opportunity to think about how we can think about what we eat in a more kind and compassionate way. And that first slide just really demonstrates the logos that are out there at the moment, just when we're looking for, oh, what shall I eat, how can I get food? I mean, the whole way in which we obtain our food now has changed beyond recognition, just in my lifetime really, from everything to the diversity and range of different foods that we can get at our fingertips, to the fact that now I genuinely don't have to get off the sofa to go shopping or have freshly prepared food delivered to my door. So I thought this would be an opportunity not to think about just how food has changed, but also how the process by which we get food has changed. You know, any exercise associated with even getting food has completely been eliminated. Yeah, so moving on, yeah, you know, when I was thinking about what to include, I thought we now live in a world where the term food porn exists. You know, our iconicalization, our love of food and everything associated with it, is really prevalent in society. You know, food has become entertainment. It's a status symbol, which restaurants we've eaten at, and actually now some research even suggests that certainly in Western cultures, we actually spend more time watching other people cook on the TV than we actually do in terms of cooking our own food. And you know, I'm certainly not chastising or saying, oh, you know, you should never be posting a really good meal on Instagram or following your favourite TV show in terms of competitive cooking. So I've put a few there. But I think what's helpful to reflect on in that context is that food now, the way we use food, what it represents, is so much more removed from what it was designed for. You know, we use it in these restaurant and bake-off and MasterChef contexts very much as a way of competing, and it can put a lot of pressure on us as perhaps somebody responsible for serving food up to a family, particularly, you know, if we've forgotten some, you know, exotic foam or something that really lifts the plate. And I think, you know, this kind of narrative can perpetuate the simple fact really, that food is nourishment and fuel for our bodies and our minds. So thinking of food as fuel, we're back to, you know, our bodies being this incredible and complex system. And if we compare, you know, the workings of our fuel system to that of a car, our car is organised in a way that will detect an empty fuel tank. It'll alert us to fill up, and it will produce a warning sign. You're going to stop working if the fuel isn't put into the vehicle. And our bodies are very similar in that way with regards to our hunger. So in our body, our warning light is our hunger, and it's triggered when our brains and bodies consider that we are running low on fuel, we're running out of food. And this warning will tell us quite urgently and incredibly insistently that we need to fill up, otherwise there's going to be a problem. You know, and this is a really important thing to remember, because I think so many of us now are bombarded with societal messages that we perhaps need to eat in a certain way or stick to a certain time for eating and a whole host of stuff. And that again has removed the reliance we have on actually just listening to our own bodies. Are we hungry? You know, we shouldn't really be planning our meals around certain times as much as we should be trying to eat when we're hungry. So within us, you know, we've got this very complex hunger system, and there is a mechanism that will connect our fuel tank, our stomach, and our fat reserves to our alarm system, our hunger. However, a bit like our car, all systems can malfunction. And certainly a lot of the thinking now is that for many of us who struggle to maintain our weight, this connection might have gone a bit awry. I mean, I really want to credit Dr. Chatterjee here with regards to certainly a lot of the content in the next few slides. Dr. Chatterjee is a GP, but also somebody with a big media presence, who does a lot of health related podcasts and books, and you know, if anybody wants to read more about what I'm presenting here today, I certainly want to reference that's where I've got a lot of this content from. So specifically with regards to this warning alert, this hunger, what it's proposed is that this keeps going off in a lot of us now, telling us we feel hungry when perhaps we shouldn't, because we've got enough fuel, we've got enough nourishment. But the minute our hunger system goes off, we feel hungry. And in those moments, it's incredibly difficult to ignore this insistent alarm system that has been evolved to protect us from starvation. So yeah, I think it's really, really important to acknowledge that, because ignoring, or certainly trying to ignore these hunger signals is practically impossible. So many traditional diets that we may all have been used to seeing will be very much encouraging of stick to this calorie content, stick to this food group, do this, and then just ignore any physical sensations of hunger. But as I say, this is a complex process of our human evolution to stop us from malfunctioning and eventually dying. It's one of the most powerful feelings that we experience. You know, it's been part of us and guiding our behaviour and decisions pretty much from the start of humanity. So it's really not that realistic to expect people to ignore it as we go around on our daily business. You know, I mean, particularly when the physiology, the warning systems that we have are, you know, were designed for a time that looks very, very different to us now. So we still have the same way of functioning and processing our hunger. However, we are surrounded by abundant sources of food. And in fact, I actually said to the person I was shopping with over the weekend, as I was going up and down the aisle in a supermarket, we've yet to come to any aisle that hasn't got chocolate or sweets or crisps in it. And it wasn't the confectionery aisle. That was in almost every aisle. There was a separate new little bit where we can get this high fat, high sugar food which is incredibly difficult to resist because they're really quick, powerful and easy energy sources. So you've got your alert going, oh, I'm a bit hungry, and then everywhere we go, we've got this available food. So I really wanted to acknowledge that, because I think there is quite a lot of stigma in society with regards to how people eat and what they choose to eat and how often they choose to eat, and body shape and a whole host of things that I will address a little bit later. But I just think as a society, we've set ourselves up to find this really, really hard, and being self-punishing about how hard we find the struggle to maintain a healthy diet and a healthy weight is just not helpful. So everything I say today is with a big dose of self-compassion as well. Please do not use this as a way to chastise or limit what you're going to eat. Use it as an educative set of information to guide you. So thinking about this, this signal system, this complex system, our bodies are so much more complex than your average car, by miles, even a top performance car. And we are just not actually actively aware of many of the signals and the subsequent processes which communicate with our bodies to decide if the food that we have eaten is either going to be burned off as energy or stored as fat. And again, some of the evidence emerging now is very much suggesting that a lot of problems that we may experience with excess weight are often as a result of this malfunctioning system. So, you know, going on to what I was just saying about compassionate approaches, there is a lot of pressure in today's society to look a certain way, eat a certain diet. And on the next slide, I have put a little asterisk next to certain diets because, oh, here we go, because I do want to point out that all diets usually involve a form of food restriction, and it was Eating Disorder Awareness Week last week. So again, you know, it's important to acknowledge that that is in the context of all of this societal pressure as well. And that we, you know, there's just a whole host of expectations when it comes to food, diet and body image culture. And there's an increasing awareness of how dangerous a lot of these messages can be. And certainly, you know, still today, there is a view held in some areas of society that not conforming to a particular diet or particular body shape means that as an individual, we must be weak-willed or lazy or indulgent or immoral or greedy, or a whole host of endless derogatory terms for anyone that finds this difficult, which, let's be honest, you know, if we have abundant food and an ability to get it, that's going to be the majority of us. So it's important to note that what happens is, for the majority of us, we think we are responding appropriately to these warning signals that our bodies are giving off, that we're eating when we're hungry, that we're stopping when we're not hungry, and we're storing fat when the body thinks it's necessary. And we can't directly control these bodily signals. You know, these are the same kind of signals that we receive when we're too hot on a scorching day in the summer. It's just our bodies working. So just to recap, we've got these complex systems. We rely on them to let us know when we're hungry, when we're not. They can often malfunction and we can't control them. That can sound a little hopeless, but for those who know me, nothing's ever hopeless. There's always a way. Because what we can do, what we are able to master within this context, is to start to recognise how the different kinds of food that we are eating change our body's signals in different ways. And actually that does give us quite a lot of power and control over what we may be able to do. And going on to one of the strategies that Dr. Chatterjee very much advocates, and not just Dr. Chatterjee, I mean, again, this is embedded in a lot of the literature about food, is most basically try to eat more real food. And what I specifically mean about real food is foods that don't come with an ingredient label, you know, a piece of fruit, a vegetable, some pulses, you know, these are the raw ingredients. These are foods that we can pick up and eat by themselves, or we can combine them together to make sure, you know, that they form a simple whole food meal. I mean, again, I've put try your best to ensure that the majority of your food, because if you go forward and go, that's it, I'm only eating real food for now, it's restrictive and it makes it almost impossible in the society we live in, and then we'll end up feeling we've failed, and then it's a whole host of downward spirals. So one of the huge benefits of real foods is that they are grown and not designed. And I don't know how widely it is known that many of the ultra processed foods we consume in our lives are designed by top chemists in laboratories. You know, these are teams of highly skilled scientists designing foods to specifically stimulate the dopamine releasing areas of the brain, you know, almost to create that addiction. It's you know, a real high when we eat a particular ultra processed dopamine releasing item of food. And there is an association with ultra processed food and the increase in levels of inflammation in the body, and also their ability to confuse the body's natural hunger and fullness signals. Whereas in contrast, you know, the natural foods, the real foods, the raw ingredients work very much in conjunction with our body systems and not against it. So some of the benefits identified of eating a diet where it is very heavy in real foods is that it can be really, really beneficial for mind, body and heart. And the three identified in the following slides, the initial one, you're likely to feel less hungry. So when I first read this, I was a bit like, oh, what do you mean? You know, cravings are rarely for real foods. And actually, I can't remember the last time I did crave a potato. I can remember many times I've craved a bag of chips or some crisps, but I don't often crave the actual real food component. So, you know, we crave chicken nuggets, we don't crave a chicken breast. So the more we eliminate those foods, the more we stick with our real food, we're likely to feel less hungry and experience less of those cravings. And as a result of that, and that reduction potentially in eating foods that are confusing to the brain and body, our bodies, which, you know, fantastically, incredibly complex systems, will find it so much easier to manage our own body weight, because we will have potentially eliminated a lot of the confusing, you know, malfunctioning systems by resetting. So if our systems are back online, we know when we're hungry, we know when we're full, we've got less stimulating dopamine enhancing foods going through our bodies, then we'll crave less of those foods, and our body hopefully will maintain a healthier weight. And as this process goes on, then we will be less tempted to eat what Dr. Chatterjee refers to as bliss or blissy foods. You know, these foods that are created in a lab to hit that bliss point in the brain, you know, and those tend to include ultra processed desserts, fast foods, over processed meats. And you know, let's be honest, the scientists responsible for making these are geniuses. You know, these are some of the most skilled and intelligent in their field minds on the planet. And it's really, really hard to resist them, you know, particularly if we've been eating them for a lot of years. So, you know, moving over to a diet that's heavier in real foods is helpful. But again, I certainly don't want anyone to leave the webinar thinking, she said you can never eat anything that's ultra processed, and if you do, you're a terrible person. Because, you know, let's just be self-compassionate here, and I'd be such a hypocrite because I eat plenty of blissy foods. So yeah, I just, as always, think a bit more education and understanding around what is going on that makes our lives more complex is helpful and can give us a greater degree of control in the choices we make. So that's more the purpose for today. So it's a really big topic to cover food and sleep in one webinar, but I'm moving on to sleep now, and I feel particularly hypocritical giving a webinar on sleep, because anyone that knows me will know that I really struggle with sleep. So on the plus side, I'm very well versed in sleep research. So let's just check in on why sleep is an issue. And you know, it is completely normal when for all of us to have periods when it's hard to fall asleep, or when we wake up in the middle of the night. You know, how much we sleep, how much sleep we need is unique to all of us. It can change as we get older. It can change if we're going through periods of transition, change, if we've got young children, if we've got older children, if we've, you know, anything can impact on what's right for us in the moment. The good news is sleep problems usually sort themselves out, usually about within a month. Because, as I say, a lot of them are context based. However, we can fall into longer stretches of bad sleep, and that can start to affect our lives, because, you know, just being tired can make everything feel much more difficult. And sleep is such a critical component to our overall health, well-being, how we heal the mind and body, what we're going to feel like in terms of our mood the next day, how much we're able to concentrate. So it is important, but we certainly don't need to panic if we have a few bad weeks' sleep. And I mean, good sleep is important because, as I've just said, it's quite simply allows us to recharge, heal our minds, our bodies, and process information. You know, it enables us, a good sleep hygiene routine can allow us to improve our sleep quality, which can improve our mood, concentration, memory. If we've got good sleep hygiene in place, it's actually really helpful as a preventative measure to stop us from developing sleep disorders. Sleep has been highly correlated with maintaining a healthy weight as well, and good sleep can lower our risk of developing serious health conditions. So, you know, it is something very much worth addressing and taking seriously. And again, thinking from a cultural perspective, there's certainly, you know, a lot of emphasis on, you can sleep when you're dead, and you know, I can burn the candle at both ends, and you know, there's a lot of validation and encouragement to some degree to stay up all night. You know, if I tell people that I try and go to bed between 9:30 and 10 at night, it's like, oh, you know, you're a party girl, aren't you? I'm way over worrying about that as a reputation. So yeah, again, a bit like with the food, listen to what your own body needs, and park some of that societal pressure. So I thought the most helpful thing for the section on sleep is the tips on falling and staying asleep that are generally out there on a whole host of websites. I mean, there are, again, literally thousands and thousands of websites on helping you get to sleep, as there are on healthy diets. But I've kind of amalgamated the evidence-based and strategies supported by medical research in terms of the tips. So keep regular sleep hours. It is really helpful, and research has shown time and time again that if you go to bed at the same time and try to get up at the same time, it's really, really helpful, and it will help your body to learn to sleep better. There are lots of advice out there on, you can catch up on sleep on a weekend, or you know, a lion is good for this reason, and are you a night owl or an early bird? Looking at the majority of the research on this, the evidence suggests that those different types of extremes don't actually naturally exist in us as individuals, and that we're likely having a line at a weekend is likely to be more unhelpful to overall sleep than not. But again, you know, I'm just presenting information. I am not going to chastise anyone who wants to stay in bed till 12 o'clock on whatever day of the week. You know, that's completely your choice. But another big one as well, in terms of what should I be doing, is confront sleeplessness. Now, when I started looking into trying to get a healthy night's sleep years ago, again, there was lots of research that said, you know, you should lie there and you shouldn't get out of bed and you could count sheep. What I'm generally finding now with regards to the research is, if you are lying awake, unable to sleep, don't force it, don't focus on it, get up and do something for relaxing for a bit and return to bed when sleepier. There is lots of research that suggests lying in bed for a long time, waiting to go to sleep, is not a helpful thing for your overall sleep routine. Again, lots of advice on creating a restful environment. A dark, quiet and cool room generally are best for sleeping. And a lot of research suggests that we should use our bedrooms pretty much just for sleep and sex, because anything else we do in there, we are creating a different narrative about what we should be doing in those rooms. So, you know, I'll go on to tech in a bit, but TVs and tech in the bedroom is not particularly helpful, again, to an overall healthy sleep hygiene routine. Another thing that comes up again and again with the research is write down your worries. So if you're lying there worrying about tomorrow, you know, write a list for the next day. Because I think, you know, certainly anecdotally with a lot of people I've spoke to, is I lie there and I think, have I done this, or what do I need to do tomorrow? By writing either of those down, you are removing that temptation to ruminate, because we're likely to think, you know, oh, I'm going to forget that, I must remember. If we've written it down, we can let that go. And moving in the day while we're awake is likely to result in a better sleep pattern. Regular exercise is really, really good for your physical health, but it's good for your mind too. And, you know, you can feel exhausted and as though you need rest as a result of physical exercise. The only caveat I would add there is, again, a lot of the research suggests that vigorous activity near bedtime actually will detrimentally impact on your sleep. So you do want to leave vigorous activities to earlier in the day. So the next one is a real big bone of contention between me and my partner. And you know, if I'm honest, I know that this contributes to my lack of good sleep. You know, all of the research is suggesting stay away from tech for a good few hours before you go to bed. And this includes computers, smartphones, televisions, things that can stimulate our brains for several hours and make sleep difficult. There are a number of devices out there now, certainly things like glasses that you can wear or screen tints that will change the light coming from a lot of these devices now, which I know some people absolutely swear by. I mean, I've not used them, so I don't know, but I certainly think going forward we need to be really mindful about you know, because how much stuff we use tech for. If I'm working with people with significant sleep problems, I will encourage them to buy an old style clock for the bedroom so they don't have to take their mobile phones into the bedroom and use it as an alarm. There is a massive amount of research that says if you go outside and experience natural light not long after waking up, that will really, really contribute to a healthy sleep-wake cycle. And there are certainly things that we can do to replicate that if that's not possible. So again, I know that there are a whole range of alarm clocks that replicate dawn and then peak with natural light as a way of waking up. So you can wake up to that natural light. It's your morning hit, or you can just go out and have your first cup of tea standing you know, on your doorstep, open the curtains and have a look out. It can be really, really helpful. And then I just want to finish with how we might be able to improve our sleep by practicing mindfulness, which I try and get into any webinar I can, because I find it personally very helpful, and so I like to share the joy. So practicing mindfulness for sleep can allow us to be more aware of our thoughts, and a bit like writing things down. Once we're aware of them, we have more option of choosing to let them go. And mindfulness meditation can be really beneficial because what it does is it almost prepares the mind for drifting off to sleep. And not only that, it has been found that it can actually improve sleep quality. And some studies are now showing that regular mindfulness meditation for sleep is at least as effective as other highly recommended insomnia treatments. So, and again, thank you, Sam. So, just a few tips on how to incorporate mindfulness for a good night's sleep. As with everything, we need to practice it daily, or certainly regularly. You know, it's a dose effect. Going home tonight and doing one meditation and then concluding in the morning that meditation doesn't help sleep, you know, it's about a practice. And as I say, with the majority of strategies for absolutely everything, diet, exercise, sleep, it's an ongoing process, you know. So getting into the practice of a regular meditation sessions, this will help, with the acknowledgement that it's going to take time. It's not instantly going to change your sleep patterns. And what is recommended is that ideally we do this practice in the day and away from our beds, primarily because the benefits of mindfulness are about stilling the mind. The danger of doing mindfulness in bed is that we are likely to fall asleep. So we will cure our insomnia potentially, but it will be quite short-lived because the ruminating thoughts might come back. That being said, you know, I still think that if you're really struggling from sleep, and you know that doing a body scan meditation whilst you're in bed will send you to sleep, then do it. You know, I mean, I don't think, as I say, any strategy, whilst we want to practice it and have some routine to it, we don't want it to be so dogmatic that we exclude things that might actually help us. So, you know, ideally practice your meditation out of bed, but if you wake up at 3 in the morning and you think a body scan might get you to sleep in 10 minutes, do a body scan. I mean, again, I know that this can be difficult when people are sharing a bed. However, again, there are lots of things that make this possible now. So there's like sleep masks with integral Bluetooth speakers, which means you have to have tech in the room. See, it's also, you know, contradictory. But you can just press play on your phone then, and you can have your body scan go on while somebody next to you cannot hear that. So there's always a solution to give a go, really. And as I say, if we can, trying not to stay in bed for, they reckon, 20 minutes. If you're awake after 20 minutes, it's time to get up and do something else. Thank you, Sam. Because you don't want to keep that association with the bed being for being awake. Okay. So, I mean, again, the advice is try not to rely on sleep apps, because in an ideal world, we shouldn't rely on anything. But as with everything I do, self-compassion, if they're working for you, then they're working for you. You know, it's sometimes we're the exception, we're the outlier in the evidence, and that's okay. And try not to force sleep. You know, the more you lie there, the more you know it won't happen. So with the mindfulness, it's about the acceptance, just noticing. And a lot of the time, that's enough to relax us. So the more we can do all of this, the easier sleep will come. And that's about, yeah, as much as I can cram, because we've run over. Just I'd leave us with that nice kind of summary of what is a good sleep routine. And over to any reflections or questions.